Alright, hi everyone and welcome back to the Observatory. So today we're going to be starting to upgrade some of the IT hardware in the Observatory. So in one of my recent videos, maybe my last one, I can't remember now, I installed the third rig and got a hold of this old laptop that I had lying around, one of the daughter's old laptops, and set that up for rig number 3. So now we've got the 1, 2 and 3, so the RASA inside the Observatory is here. The Edge 11 is on here, and then the solar scope was on the third one. However, this third laptop is so old, I think it's only a dual core machine, and it really struggles to do anything other than the absolute basics of capturing images. So as you know, I occasionally do some live streams from inside the Observatory, and any hope of doing that while trying to do other things at the same time, it really grinds to a halt with this laptop. The other issue I had with this old laptop was there wasn't enough power on the USB ports to supply the cameras, and they kept dropping out, so I had to use an external USB hub. And also there's no network port on this laptop, it's only a slow Wi-Fi connection, so I had to use an external USB network adapter. And that goes with the other two laptops as well. These are ones that I bought a couple of years ago now when I first installed all the equipment in the Observatory. And these ones, although they're Ryzen 5 4500Us, they are pretty slow. And again, they can handle, obviously doing all the imaging with Nina and things like that, no problem. They can also at the same time just manage to do streaming. However, I do see rendering lags when I'm concurrently doing multiple things on the laptops. And these ones also have no Ethernet connection, they're just external USB network adapters. So this ran into another problem with the machines. I can't do any wake on LAN with them, although it does say that the port and the adapter did support it. I had absolutely no joy trying to get them to actually do a wake on LAN if they've gone to sleep for any reason. So that was a bit of a struggle. So what I'm planning to do is to obviously ditch this ancient laptop here and replace the rig PCs with mini PCs, so that I'll have one dedicated to each rig, and then I'll use one of these laptops purely as an interface for managing streaming and things like that. So one of the other problems was the rig number 1 laptop. The power button's gone on it already, it's been worn out, and it needs a bit of a hammering to actually get the laptops to switch on. And then obviously we're bandwidth constrained on some of the USB ports. There's only 2 USB ports on these machines, so again dependent on using USB hubs and things, which also start throwing in some issues now and again. So as I say, I plan to replace these 3 laptops with mini PCs for actually doing all the rig hardware. And then I'll use one of these laptops as an interface for doing remote desktop and managing streaming and things while I'm inside the Observatory. And then obviously when I'm inside the house doing remote, that's no problem. I can just remote directly into each of the individual PCs. The other thing I'm going to do is, as I do in the summer predominantly, I like live streaming from out here in the Observatory. Whether it's in the daytime when the sun's out, doing solar live streaming, or at night if I'm using the RASA or the Edge 11. So what I want to do is try and improve the streaming setup, and I've actually also got an ATEM Mini streaming device, and also a loop deck controller. So at the moment I do have these Stream Deck Minis, which I use just for switching scenes and things like that, and starting and stopping the streams, etc. So I plan to tidy all this up, upgrade the hardware, and hopefully get a more reliable streaming setup, and obviously upgrade particularly this laptop, which is just really struggling. So let's head off inside now and take a look at the hardware and start trying to assemble some sort of new setup. Alright, so here we are back inside. So here I am in the home office, and this is where I do my remote desktop into the observatory when I'm doing everything remotely. And here is where we're going to set up all the equipment as a test first, get it all configured, working, make sure everything's doing as it should before we start migrating everything down into the observatory. So excuse the blinds being closed, it is a nice day, but we're getting too much glare from outside. So anyway, on the desk I've got a laptop that I can use for testing the remote desktop and looking up any settings or anything like that I need to get our hands on. I've got the new equipment that I've recently acquired for doing this upgrade, and this is normally my desk that I do all my electronics and 3D printing cleanup and all that sorts of stuff. And then I've got an old 30-inch PC monitor that we'll use for doing the initial configs of the new PCs. And then over on the right hand side here, I've got a TV that I can use for maybe testing the monitor output of the ATEM Mini. It might come into the equation as part of the testing and setup. And then I've got over here, I've got my my 3D printers that they live there. And on the other side of the room, this is where I've got my main workstation that I do all my editing and software programming and stuff like that from. And in the corner I've just got a rack that I keep all my equipment on. And I've got the NAS drivers up there, a couple of UPS units, one for the NAS and the PC and another one for the networking and things like that. So that's what's up there. And then on this desk as well, I've also got another PC down on the left here. I don't know if you can see that there just with the angle, but that's a machine that I use very rarely, really just for doing tests of new Linux distros or just messing around in general. Very rarely gets turned on now. And my main PC sits, you can probably just see it through underneath the monitor, but that lives to the side of the desk. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take a look at some of the hardware that we've acquired for this build, and then we'll get into the actual build. Alright then, so here we are, and the products that I elected to go for is the Minis Forum, and it's the UM690 variant. And you know, I obviously don't intend this to be a full review of the product, just an overview. And there's plenty of videos on YouTube which go into depth around the capabilities of the unit, and you know, tear it down and have a look inside and what expandability and everything is available to it. But I'll leave that to somebody else, and we'll just have a quick look at the unit, what we get and what connectivity is on the unit. Okay, so Minis Forum UM690, as I said. It does have the Ryzen 9 6900 HX processor in it, which is an 8-core 16-thread CPU, and it has a base clock of 3.3 GHz, I think it is, and it boosts up to 4.9, and nice small compact unit, as we can see. And yeah, this should do just ideal. So before we look at this, what else do we get in the box? Let's have a look. So we get a power adapter. Obviously I bought this in Europe, so it's got the EU power plug. It's got a small mini HDMI cable. It's got the standard 19 volt laptop power brick. This one is 120 watts. It comes with a little stand for the unit. It also comes with a VESA mounting bracket, so you could, in theory, if you have a freestanding monitor, you could mount this on the back of the monitor so the PC is hidden away. It also comes with this small SATA adapter. The unit will take a 2.5 inch SATA hard disk or SSD. I think it goes just under the lid here, so that's for installing that. And it also comes with a couple of spare rubber feet. If you do need to open it up, you have to pull off the rubber feet, and obviously you can lose your adhesion on the stickies, and they are to replace that if you damage them. So that's all well and good, so hopefully I won't be needing any of that, as I've got no intention of opening it up. So let me move this out of the way. So the stand, I don't know whether it'll help with thermals or not, but anyway, there's the stand, and you can obviously have it mounted however you want it, like that, like so. Set it on your desktop, and or you can have, oh, wrong way around, we can just have it sat on the desktop. So I haven't decided which orientation I'll have it. In terms of ventilation, all around the unit there is ventilation holes for airflow, so I don't know if there's any benefit one way or the other, and it's not going to be under huge demanding workloads, so I don't anticipate to be any thermal issues with the unit. So depending on how much space and things I've got on the desks in the observatory, it might end up being vertical or horizontal, not to worry. So anyway, on the unit itself, in terms of connectivity, let's start at the front. We've got this little recessed button for clearing the CMOS. We've got a power button, and we've got a combo 3.5 jack for both microphone and headphones. Then we've got a USB 4 Type-C connector on the front. So I think this is 20 gigabit connectivity under the USB 4 standard, which also means that you can connect external GPUs to the unit if you find you need that extra processing power, or if you're big into gaming or whatever, you could theoretically do that through that port. I don't think I'll have any need for that. Then we've got a standard USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C connector on the front, and then this little hole here I believe is a little microphone. There's nothing on either of the sides other than ventilation. On the back we've got the power input jack, we've got 2.5 gigabit LAN connection, a Kensington lock port, so we could secure it to the desk of the observatory. Then we've got two USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A USB ports. Then we've got two HDMI ports, and another two 3.2 Gen 2 USB Type A's. Now the HDMI ports, I believe they're 4K 60 Hz capable, and then the USB 4 port on the front, that is 8K 60 Hz capable, I believe. And that is the unit. In terms of the storage in the unit, I've gone for the 1 terabyte M.2 SSD, and the memory is I've got DDR5, and I've put 32 gigabytes of RAM in there, which should be more than ample for what we are doing, and hopefully never mean I need to do any upgrades on this unit. And when it comes to end of life, it'll be literally end of life. So here's one of these units. So I've got 3 of these, each for each of the rigs, and obviously to connect them all together, the unit does have 2.5 gigabit LAN, as I say, but it does also have Wi-Fi. I'm not quite sure of the specification, but I won't be using it with Wi-Fi. I would imagine it's all the latest Wi-Fi standards that it supports, which I can use obviously as fallback if the LAN dies for any reason. But I'm going to go with the LAN connector for hooking all these units together and onto the backbone of the observatory back up to the house. So to facilitate that, the Wi-Fi slash Ethernet router that I've got in the observatory is 1 gigabit connection back to the house. But what I have done is I've got this CGX-L or CGX-L or however you want to pronounce it, small 5-port Ethernet switch, which are all 2.5 gigabit connectivity, so that I can have all 3 of the the mini PCs connected in through the switch. So if there's any data moving back and forth around between them, particularly when we're doing the streaming and things, if that's how I end up doing, then obviously I've got high bandwidth connectivity there. And if I ever upgrade the Wi-Fi link back to the house, then obviously we're future-proof there with the 2.5 link for certainly the short to medium term. And then we've also got just another DC input, 12 volt, which is good because I can always hook that into the existing DC supplies that I've got in the observatory. Although it does come with a USB, a power brick and various plug adapters for different international plugging. So as I mentioned as well, that I like to do the streaming, particularly when the weather's good, from out in the observatory. And I've got my hands on this ATEM Mini Pro, which can also do direct streaming to YouTube, etc. Just with the Go Live feature on it, and with all the camera switches or input selects and all that sorts of things. Particularly useful if I've got multiple rigs running, and well, I've never used it before, but we'll wait and see how that pans out. So we'll open that later. And then, as I mentioned, for the streaming, I got my hands on this loop deck, which is similar to the Stream Deck. So this is the Stream Deck Mini that I currently use in the observatory. I've got the bigger brother of this, the XL, which sits just on the desk in front of me here for when I'm streaming from inside the house. This was the original webcam that I was using in the observatory when streaming, just a 720p Logitech, I think it's a C270. I can't remember, but I think it's a C270. So I'll change that for a 1080p 60Hz webcam, which will hopefully improve some of the quality. And then the loop deck, I've got all the controls on here for the audio and all the scene switching, etc. And whether I'll use this entirely on its own and leave these for the other two laptops if I'm doing something different, I don't know yet. Because you can set up these units for controlling software and things like that. So that's the loop deck, the Stream Deck Mini from the observatory, a new webcam and the existing webcam. So I might do some form of combination with all them. So that's all the new hardware. So what we'll do next is we'll go across to the other desk and we'll start trying to set up some of this gear. And we have hit the first snag. So setting up the Minis Forum PC, I plugged in the ATEM Mini Pro and turned on the monitor to see if I could get an output, and the screen's broken, which is no use. So that's the spare monitor dead, so it looks like I'll have to resort to using the spare TV. Let's see how this goes. Alright, so here's all the equipment laid out and set up. Anyway, so we've got the three mini PCs standing up in their stands. I've got the HDMI output from each of them going into the Blackmagic ATEM Mini Pro. And then I've got the output from the ATEM going into the TV screen. And we can see on the screen we've got the three video inputs coming from the three mini PCs, and then we've got the program output and the preview output. So if I switch to program on the ATEM Mini, it switched the active PC screen, and then I can also switch across to the other screens should I want to look at them full screen. So if I go back to the overview, that's how it looks. And then for setting up, I have got a temporary wired keyboard and mouse going into the mini PC on the left. So now I can go into each of them and start updating them, setting them up and getting them all working. I haven't installed any software for the ATEM on my laptop here. Clearly I don't need it at the time being, so what I'll do is I'll get the PC set up first, and then I'll install the software probably onto this left machine, which will be the one I'll predominantly or more likely use for streaming, and this is going to be the one that's connected to the solar rig, and then we'll have the other two connected to the Edge 11 and the RASA. So also on the ATEM Mini Pro, there's a network connection, and I've got the 5-port network switch set up here with the network connection going to each of the mini PCs. And then I've got the white cable here, that goes back up to my main network router in the office here, so that we've got internet connection for downloading the updates and getting all the software for all the various applications like Nina and ASI Studio, the camera drivers and all these sorts of things that I still need to obviously install onto these new machines. And then I've also got the loop deck set up here, which is connected into the PC, which I'll be using for the streaming. And I think it's just a case of getting it done now. So what I can do first is I can switch to program, which obviously select the mini PC here on the left, which is number 1, and just basically get on with it. Alright, so we'll catch you up in a bit. Alright, so Windows Update is doing all its updates in the background. I went through the normal Windows setup routine when you get a first fresh new login. Went through all that, went into Windows Update, make sure it was downloading all the updates, and I also installed my current remote desktop of choice, which is RustDesk. And as you can see here in the Discovered tab, it's found the other devices on the network that I currently have RustDesk set up on. That was easy to say. And as you can see in the top right hand corner as well, it currently says connected, and that's because over on my main PC I've got the RustDesk server, the RustDesk client connected to that mini PC over there. So we've got remote desktop access now onto that mini PC, which means I can unplug the keyboard and mouse from this machine, move it onto the next one and repeat the process. So I'm going to get on with that now. Alright, so that's all 3 machines now running their updates. So here we go, 1, 2 and 3, all doing their thing, and I've installed RustDesk remote desktop software on each of them and set up my usual password for all that. So I can now connect to them all remotely. As we can see over on this screen, we've got the 3 desktops doing their thing, and everything is working hunky-dory. So now I just need to let them finish and start installing all the rest of the software. The other thing I'll do is I'll go on to my my main network router, and I'll assign static IPs to these 3 boxes once all the updates are done. And then I'll just continue to install all the various bits of software before we head outside. So I'll just keep battering away with these updates. Alright there, and hi there, and welcome back. So yesterday was all about setting up, and I think I've now got the setup in a reasonable configuration that works. Had a lot of tinkering, as you'd expect, and there's a lot of tidy up to do obviously with all the cabling. And once I move everything down to the observatory, then I'll look to see what size of cables I need and try and get everything as neat as possible down in the observatory. So the first thing you'll see is we've got everything laid out on the desk. The keyboard and mouse, they were only used for the initial setup of the mini PCs, and the computer screen or the TV there is only currently being used to monitor the output from the ATEM Mini Pro. So we've got the 3 PCs, they're all connected to the HDMI outputs to the ATEM Mini onto channels 1, 2 and 3. And then I've got my laptop, one of the laptops from the observatory that I'm going to use for controlling the streaming and things like that while I'm inside the observatory. Otherwise I'll do everything remote desktop into the mini PCs from the house, where I can also obviously do streaming and everything from separately. So the laptop, as I say, goes into channel number 4. Then I've also got the microphone. So this is my wireless mic connected into one of the mic inputs. So the ATEM Mini Pro has 2 mic inputs. So having the wireless mic means I can be out at the exterior telescope rigs and still talking to the stream if I need to. But what I'm thinking of doing is getting a second non-wireless mic for sitting on the desk when I'm inside the observatory, and then I can switch on and off the microphones using the ATEM. On the right hand side of the ATEM, we've got the cut and auto, so this allows you to switch and transition between the different inputs. And at the moment I've got the output set to multi-view, which is what you can see on the screen at the moment, which shows you the 4 inputs coming into the system. It shows you what the preview is, which is the green one on the ATEM, the green button, and then the program is the output, which is the red button. So what I can do is on the laptop I've set up YouTube streaming with my streaming key and things like that. So when I hit the on-air button on the ATEM, it'll pump that stream straight out onto the YouTube, and whatever's in the program display will obviously go out to YouTube. So on the desk I've also got a loop deck. So I've just been playing around with that, trying to set up some different key combinations and things, so it'll take a bit of time to get it exactly how I want it, but I put some basic ones in just to do some testing. So I've got 2 displays set up. So the second one is for websites, so I can add in like Clear Outside or Solar Space Weather Live and things like that. Hit the buttons and it'll open up on the laptop. So if I hit YouTube Studio on there, it brings up YouTube Studio there on my laptop. And on the observatory side of things, I've put in a couple of multi-action buttons that show me the status of the webcams. So I've set up 2 webcams onto the laptop, so they're connected into the laptop, and I can turn them on and off in all the various scenes, whether I want to have it visible what I'm doing or whatever. So that's what I've got currently set up on the loop deck. Now I've also got the Stream Deck Mini set up, and I've got 4 scenes already set up there that have got the outputs from the laptops. So I've done a screen grab of their displays, and I've also got the transition button there so I can flick between them, which we'll see just in a minute. So some of the initial problems I had with the mini PCs is when they're in a headless setup, so when there's no display connected and there's no keyboard or mouse connected. So when the ATEM is powered on, as we can see here, it works quite fine. It sets up a display that matches the HDMI inputs of the ATEM, so 1920 by 1080. And everything works great. A remote desktop in using my normal Rust desk off a laptop or from a PC in the house, and it works fine, no problems. However, if the ATEM is switched off, then there's obviously no display configured on the mini PCs, and the Rust desk software creates a virtual desktop, but it's only 640 by 480, which is no use. So there is a way around that, and that is to install a virtual display onto the PCs and set that up on the desktop as an extended display, and then when I do a Rust desk in, everything works great, even if the ATEM is powered off. And then the fallback option I've got is I've configured a remote desktop on each of the mini PCs, which doesn't seem to have that problem. And also if I'm doing remote desktop from inside, then because I've got the 4K displays on my main desk, the remote desktop software will set up 4K displays, which the outputs of the mini PC can handle fine. So I've got a couple of works around there, and that is all hunky-dory. The other issue I had was relating to the mouse pointer. So if I was streaming one of the outputs from the mini PC and I was controlling the mini PC on my laptop, for example, with having no keyboard plugged in, it's not possible to see the mouse pointer on the display as the display that's getting sent to the streaming. So you wouldn't know what I'm pointing at, what I'm clicking at and things like that. And again, the way around that is by installing a a virtual mouse driver. So I just used the Logitech Gaming virtual mouse driver, installed that, and now again no problem. So that was the only two minor issues that I had. So in terms of the streaming, so obviously I said I use the laptop for doing remote desktop into the PCs, and then I can use the remote desktop, I can use the laptop if I'm doing streaming from inside the observatory, and I can use the ATEM to control all the various outputs. So when we're live streaming from inside the observatory, obviously I want to feed the webcam and things like that, and to do that I use OBS Studio on the laptop. I can then use in studio mode, I can send the program output out to the HDMI port of the laptop, which then gets picked up by the ATEM and then obviously fed into the stream, which is all good. And then I just remote desktop onto the PCs with the laptop, and I can see everything on the screen. And what that allows me to do as well is if I want to do something on the laptop but I don't want to see the public to see what I'm doing on the laptop, I can use the ATEM to switch the video feed directly to one of the mini PCs, and that allows me to do everything I need to do on here, and all that the end user will see is the mini PCs. So at the moment you can see the mini PCs are all switched off and there's no blue light on the front of them. And one of the things that did annoy me in the observatory with the laptops was I didn't have a wake on LAN feature. So if I was inside and the weather broke and I wanted to do some astro, I had to go out to the observatories to turn on the laptops, because no matter what I did on them, I couldn't get wake on LAN to work with the USB network adapters. However, these mini PCs do support wake on LAN, so I'm using a piece of software called Wake Me on LAN, and basically, as maybe you can't see at that range, but I can select the PC that I want, or all of them, and just hit wake on LAN and confirm yes, and here we can see all the three PCs have started up, and we'll see on the displays the desktops will come up just shortly. So that works great. The other thing I can do is with the audio from each of the PCs. Now normally I'll just have all the audio channels on, and that way anything that just gets fed through the laptop will get streamed straight back out onto the YouTube stream, but I can control individually what audio is coming into the system. There we can hear it beeping, was all the virtual mouse drivers activating as the system came up. And yeah, I can turn on and off the audio there. I can adjust the volumes on the ATEM, or I can use the ATEM software control in the audio tab, and I can adjust some of the gains and some of the volumes and things on the ATEM as well. On the ATEM software, I can also use the switching feature on there and control anything that I want instead of having to use the buttons on here, but it's just as easy to use the ATEM. So now that we've got the three PCs fired up and the laptop's also running, we can see the three outputs and the laptop display on the far right. And currently the red light is on the laptop input, so it is active as program, and then the current preview is mini PC number 1, and I can change that, and if they didn't have all the same desktop you would see that on there. And then on the ATEM as well, we've got some crossover features for the video. You've got mix, and you've got various up, down, left, right swipes and things. And I can just select the mix button, and it'll switch when I hit auto. It'll switch across the program output to the other one, or I can just flick it back and the cut does it instantly, or auto does it through the transition. So that's great on there. So we're on the laptop at the moment, and if I open up my remote desktop, and I can start connecting into the PCs. And there we go, we're onto the desktop, so I can just log in with my PIN, and now we've got the OBO1 PC is active. So if I just open up YouTube on there, just so we've got something on the display, and I'll go to, that'll do. Alright, so there we've got PC number 1 is on my laptop, but it's not visible obviously to the outside world yet. So what I do is in OBS Studio, I can use my scene transitions, or I can select it on the screen. So I want rig number 1, hit it into the output, and now I can, on the OBS Studio, I can right click on program and full screen project it to the HDMI port, and now we can see on the multi-view the top right has switched to the laptop's display, and at the top left of the program you can also see I've got the 2 webcams coming into the channel. So now if I switch the ATEM to number 1, we get the PC display on the preview, and I can hit transition. So let's do a white transition and hit auto, and we can see the program in the top right has switched across to the mini PC directly, and you can see the cameras have disappeared and you can't see what I'm doing on the laptop screen now, but you can still see what's going on that mini PC. So if it was doing some live streaming, live stacking or something like that, or the cameras were on Nina, you could see what exactly is going on the screen. And I can still control directly on the laptop through the remote desktop. As you can see, my mouse is moving around on the screen, but you can't see what I'm doing on the PC, or the webcams are visible. So it's a good way to control what's going out onto the display. So if I can switch across to PC number 2 now, and again I can open up another remote desktop session for rig number 2. Log into there, and now we've got rig number 2 directly on the program output. Or if I go back to the laptop, we bring in the remote desktop for rig number 2 and also bring in the webcams. And then, as I said, with the audio, I can switch on or off the different audio channels depending on how I want to bring the audio into the stream. So that's pretty much everything. The only other things that you can see on the desk is I've got a USB 4-port hub just to give me some extra USB inputs to the laptop, and then I've got the 5-port network switch, which is also connected to the ATEM Mini to allow it to do the software control as well. And I think that covers everything. So on the screen, normally I wouldn't need to use this, however I'm quite liking having all the visibility of all the different inputs and being able to see what's on preview and what's on program. So I might get a small cheap 1920 by 1080 a monitor for inside the observatory and connect it into there, and that will just give me a bit more security in terms of what is going out onto the internet. And also I can see the status of the stream. So this box down here does show me the data rates and things and the quality of the stream that's going out onto YouTube. And then on the bottom right of the screen we can see all the audio channels, and when they're playing and making audio, you can see all the volume levels and how they're blowing out any of the channels and things, and you can adjust them accordingly on either on the ATEM or on the laptop. And then the other thing I can do is on the ATEM, on the far right hand side, these 6 buttons here allow me to adjust what the program view is. So I can switch to program and see exactly what the full screen program looks like, or I can switch the various inputs from the laptop, for example, or any of the mini PCs to see what's going on them. And then I can flip back to program or flip back to multi-view and see exactly how the stream is looking. And that's about it. So all I need to do now is take all this and dump it into the observatory somehow. So that's what I'm going to go and work on now. So we'll catch you later. Alright, so welcome back to the observatory. So yesterday I took that pile of equipment and cables and dragged it down to the observatory and managed to get it all plugged in, back in, semi-decent setup. Cables are reasonably tidy. There's still a few cables I want to reroute under the floor of the observatory and things, and the main focus was obviously getting everything up and running and the cables reasonably tidy. So that's what we've managed to achieve. Now I did have a clear night last night, so I thought, well, I'll go and set up the rig 1 inside the observatory and just see how I got on with that on the new mini PC. And I did run into a problem where it kept dropping connections, although it didn't lose connection to the mount. It appeared to be something internally in the CPWI, as it was the focuser and the GPS module that was dropping out. The mount stayed connected. So, you know, nothing else had changed. The cables are all the same. The only thing that was new was the mini PC and the software that was on the mini PC. So today I downgraded the CPWI versions. So when I installed all the software again onto the new mini PCs, I just grabbed the latest version off of Celestron's website, and that was CPWI version 2.4.3, which was updated in February. And I rolled back to 2.42 and I set up the connection again, so the mount's currently connected and everything's currently connected through the mini PC, and I'm monitoring it with a remote desktop session, and so far I haven't seen any any connection dropouts for those particular devices. So I don't know if there was something going on with the new version of CPWI. I've still got the new version running on the rig 2 and rig 3, and they're connected to the mounts and there's no problems with them. So I'm not exactly sure what exactly the problem was, but it appears to have sorted itself out with the downgrade to 2.4.2. So I'm just going to monitor it. I don't know whether I've been plugging cables in and out, that's maybe helped as well. So we'll just see how things go, and I can always upgrade to the new version again and see if the problem reoccurs. But at the moment, all is good. So let's take a look at what we've got set up now. So as you recall, previously I had the 3 laptops 1, 2 and 3 set up on the desks, and I've ripped all that out, and now I'm just running with one of the laptops for controlling the streaming and everything, and then in behind I've got the 3 mini PCs, I've got the wireless mic receiver, I've got my C920 webcam, I've got the ATEM switcher, I've got the loop deck, the stream deck, and my Google Home Mini. And I might get rid of the stream deck later down the road once I've set up the loop deck fully, but in the meantime it's working and switching fine on OBS Studio. And then on the laptop, as I said, I need 2 hands to do this. There we go. So on the laptop I've got OBS Studio, I've got Remote Rust Desk, and this is actually what you can see on the screen is currently rig number 3, so the outside solar rig. I've got rig 2 connected and rig 1 connected, and on rig 1 I've also got Nina running. And then on OBS Studio I've currently got rig 3 preview is in the preview screen, and then on the program it's looking at the laptop scene, and I've also got the ATEM switch to on air, so we're pushing everything that's coming out of the ATEM directly up onto YouTube, and I've got YouTube Studio running on the web browser, and I'm just looking to see how that connection and things behaving itself. So everything's looking good. It occasionally drops down to poor quality, but I think that's the internet connection that comes into the house. Maybe the one of the routers is needing a reboot, which does occasionally happen. So everything is looking rosy so far. And then over on this desk, this was one of the other PCs. This is actually the one that had the dodgy power button, and I can use that for monitoring the chat coming in on YouTube Studio. Eventually I think I will put another display on here like I had in the office when I was setting, so I can monitor the monitor setup or the monitor output from the ATEM Mini Pro, and be able to see what's getting pushed out onto the net on the multi-view, which I quite like that feature. And then under the desk So I've added in the new switch, so this is the 2.5 gigabit switch that feeds all the mini PCs, and I've still got some cable managed to do with the powers and things like that, but it's out of the way at the moment. And then under the desk at this side, a usual rat nest of cables. We've got the 3 mini PC power bricks, and really that's about it. So the other benefit of the setup is that I've now got a bit more desk space. So before I was fighting for space for using the mouse, so that's given me a nice cleaner setup for when I'm in the observatory doing any streaming and everything. So the other things I want to do in the future, I mentioned I want to put the cables down under the observatory and tidy them up a bit, but I might also put another one of these Sonoff wireless relays onto the panel there, and because the network switch and my observatory router can take a 12 volt input, I might feed them through there and take the 12 volts directly off of the observatory solar system rather than having the power bricks for those, and that'll help also clean up with some of the mess. So really that's all I have got to say in the meantime. I hope you've enjoyed this little follow-up on the changes to the observatory, and I'm just going to monitor this connection and just see how it behaves, and hopefully get back to some imaging. Although the weather's looking pretty horrendous for the next week. It's sunny just now, but that's not meant to last. I think it starts to cloud over again later this evening. So on that note, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave any comments or questions down in the comments below the video, and I will catch you hopefully soon in the next one. So take care of yourselves everyone, and clear skies.